Alright guys, today is planting day, so I'll probably be breaking up this video into several parts. Sorry for all the wind today. I have no choice, but just gonna plant and do the best we can. Wind has definitely picked up today, a little more than anticipated, so hopefully my audio won't be too bad. But I did get this. This used to be my dad's, and I think this will help me out a lot more than just broadcasting the way I was. I can always adjust it to whatever I need. I think that will speed things up for me. But you can see I brought a few items with me today. Not everything is here. I'm gonna have to make another trip later this evening to finish out the rest of it. But these are my mammoth, these are, there you go, Mongolian sunflower seeds, mammoth size sunflowers. I'm going to plant them. I'm also going to add a few other items to my experimental zone, and we're going to do that one. So I'll explain that after I'm done with all the sowing, because I cannot film this while I'm sowing, unfortunately, but we'll at least talk about what I've got here. This is Sunn hemp. I use that to really boost nitrogen in my soil. The king of nitrogen is Sunn hemp. This is Eagleseed Gamekeeper. Anytime you see those black colored seeds, that is the vining type of soybean. However, I've added this Eagleseed right here, which is a manager's mix and contains even more varieties of vining soybeans. And I'm only putting this out in a certain area, and I can talk about that once I'm done planting. This is also Gamekeeper Eagleseed soybean. This is Buckwheat, and I'm going to continue to reduce the buckwheat rates because I'm gaining volunteer seed. So eventually I won't have to sow any buckwheat. It'll be good to go on its own. And then I actually got this in today. That is Milo, your standard growing Milo plants. I'm going to put them in a little bit in the experimental zone over here, but because I'm doing soil restoring and trying to keep track of everything, so I don't want to really lose track of my boundaries. So like right here where the screen wall was, I'm going to add more Milo in this area here to kind of guide me on where the screen wall used to be, because I'm going to be doing some weed work this year to make sure this upper end of the plot doesn't get out of control with morning coffee like that low end does. And once the morning coffee up here is gone, I will return the screen wall, but in the meantime I can at least improve the soil conditions here. So take advantage of whatever you can. So my soybean areas will be expanding just because I'm doing a different design this year. Also, here's my experimental test strip from last year that had all the cowpeas and the short dwarf sorghums in it. Let me try to get a better view here. Bag's kind of dirty, but you can see it there, what's left of the text in it. So I'm going to be adding a big variety batch. I'm increasing variety as I go. Now granted, I'm going to say this again with how I do things, this is just the personal way that I plant. You want the easiest method, find a company that mixes a whole bunch of different spring and summer species together and plant your plot. I just like studying, learning how plants develop, and that's a big reason why I do experimental strips in the food plot, to just see if deer like it, how they react to it, is it going to help anything. Big fellow soybean right here. I'm going to finish this bag off first. It needs to go away. It's down to its last little bit. Deer vetch. If you've seen my videos from last year, you got a good idea where that's going. And it's going to go over here in section 4 for the new people. And I'll explain that after planting is done. Peanuts. Deer love peanuts. And I'm not planting this whole bag. That's a 50-pound bag. So I don't want to put out this whole thing here. I'm actually going to put out a small portion of this in my experimental test strips. And then we're going to monitor that over the summer. My main goal is to increase pod production, which is what the soybean is for. But at least mixing these other species in here, my plot does a lot better than just solo planting a lot of these single species. But that kind of gives you a glimpse of where this is going. And I think I have, yeah, there's some more there. I'm pretty much sure now I've covered over all the seed I'm going to do, or at least most of it. There's one other type of sunflower that I had gotten freely from my company I work at. It just so happens they were trying to promote you know, growing green and stuff like that, and they gave out free seed, and there was packets of sunflowers in there that nobody took, and I immediately grabbed every one of them. And I forgot the name of the variety, but it grows about 8 feet tall, but it doesn't make the big heads. But that's fine. That's extra sunflowers, and I will set that out, and I'll get you the name of them here in the next video or two once things start getting up and running on the plot end of things. Just so you know too, one of the things that happens when you allow these plots to fully cycle on your spring and summer, you're going to gain volunteer seed. That is actually cowpeas that have sprung up in here from where I had a little bit of cowpea vines in this area here, where I was experimenting with letting them grow up some of the sorghum. And all that extra seed, they have come back with a vengeance. And I'll go ahead and show you the experimental strip too. So just be aware, you're going to get volunteer seed, just like I've got volunteer soybean growing in here from the pods that the deer didn't get to. So there's actually okay pockets of that, and there's other areas that just don't have anything. So down here is where the experimental strip runs. You can tell by the way the ground looks, it's thinner. Not as much biomass here, but there's all kinds of seed that I may try to save. I mean, there's buckwheat coming up in here. There's plenty of variety, but there won't be any sunflowers or sorghum because all that seed got eaten up. So I need to keep those same species back in this strip in order to maintain my experimental process. So that's why I'm probably just going to end up chopping a lot of this up. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and, well, yeah, I might as well go ahead and end the video here, and then I will edit in the rest of this and try to get this planted before the next rain hits. So hang on tight, guys. There'll be more to this. All right, guys, I think this part's, it's not as important to me, but I think it's important enough for you to at least see what I'm doing when I'm mixing here. And what I've got in this mix already is soybean, large lad and big fellow, and then I've got some of the buckwheat seeds mixed in here. I have dropped my buckwheat rate just a little bit, but now I have reached where my screen wall used to be. So I'm just doing this as a place marker. There's no real valuable reason why I'm putting a strip of Milo in this, but it also adds a different type of grain. So I am adding more grain options, but I'm basically just trying to keep intact all my restoring sections, so that way I have a good gauge of where the soil for zone 2 stops, and then, or section 2 and then section 1 up here. And down here I'm not worried about it as much, just up here, because there is a several years gap between the two here, and I'm just making sure I monitor things as close as possible. So what I'm going to do is add my Milo mix into this, which is this bag right here. Remember, you're going to be in a different situation than I am, but I'm just doing this for a marker. So I'm just going to mix it in here. And you know, the easy thing to do is just, you know, if you want to dump it into a pile like that, that's fine, but as long as you can get good mix. And see, I may go a little more, probably not too much more. That looks good enough, and we'll just dump the remaining in there. So I think that looks good enough. So initially it looks like there's just pretty much a bunch of soybean in here, which it is. That's my primary plant I want growing. But by mixing in a few other things here, I'll just add a pinch more of this, just to show you some, you know, different ways to get it mixed. But you just do whatever you feel like you need. What I seem to find out is when you're dealing with really poor ground that has a lot of organic matter problems, I think higher buckwheat sow rates should be used to build up the organic portion of your soil. So that's also something else to think about. Just another thought to be in your head somewhere. So you could back them off if you want to. Just whatever you feel like. You're in control of what you want. But that's how I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to actually back the sow rate off here, because it was really flinging it thicker than I anticipated, because I already burned through a quarter of a bag and over half of another just putting it in here. So that's a little faster than I want it gone. So I'm going to do a simple adjustment here and back that sucker down. Actually, I'm going the wrong way. So there we go. The more play you got, the less it opens up. So that will help get me through the rest of this, and then I'll do the next part, which is showing you how to override a lot of this mat, which a lot of this here is thinner up here, so there's not that much to override. But let me try something here real quick. Let me see if I can do this. I'll go as far as I can with it. All right, let's stop there. I need more control. But it's spitting it out all over the place, which is still a little too high. So I'm going to back my sower down again, and I'll get it adjusted right, and I'll have the plot ready to go here shortly. So hang on for the rest of it, guys. More to come. All right, guys, I have reached the part to where I have tilled back the seed that I have set out. So my process so far has been to knock this down, come back in and reseed, but when my tractor broke down, it's messed the timing up with everything. So this actually got to set a full 12 to 13 days before I could actually do anything with it. So I'm waiting to see if the result looks a little better here. But I went back, sowed all the seed in here that I needed to, and then I went over it again with the tiller, and because of the soil drying out some more, and mainly the vegetation that did die initially, it all had shrunk up and shriveled up, which opened up the gaps in the ground. And that's why this is as close as I can get to a no-till process, because I'm actually disturbing the mat again. And this is like chopped up salad at this point. But there's seed in here. I've got, let me dig this guy out. I saw him sticking up out of the ground. So there's peanut. Let me get him open here. Must have dropped this one. But peanuts are in here, and they'll do good. I've got carrots in this and in these sections. Soybean is my main driver here, but I've got experimental plants in here mixed with it. Not exactly how I planned it, but I needed to get this in the ground. For some strange reason, I cannot find my Multimax seed. I don't know what in the world has happened to it. And I was going to use that here so you all could see the different types of soybeans. You know, this area here is not only an experimental strip, but I can also demonstrate different species here to help you decide if you want that in your plot or not. But it is what it is. So a lot of this right here is planted, ready to go. There is tons and tons of seed in here. Probably the highest sow rate I've ever used. Soybean was sold at nearly 80 pounds an acre this year. Just because the mat was so thick this year, I thought I might want to bump it up a hair to see what happens. But because of the material here that has dried up and shriveled up, now these thin areas are really showing a lot of exposed dirt, which looks similar to just, you know, straight tilling something in. But I do have large amounts of biomass decaying in here, and this will help this soil out tremendously. I probably ended up digging 1.5 inches deep, because the tiller was able to bite down a lot more because this is dried out. Up here, the mat actually held up better here because there was a lot of surviving regrowth up here. This is kind of more of what I was going for, but a little thicker. And that's just what happens when you have to disturb again. I see some rocks here. Definitely gonna get rid of these. This is what made my tiller jump up earlier. Now they won't. But this whole upper end has been planted, and it is now ready. So from end to end we have seed in the ground, and now I have to defend it from groundhogs and other species once this comes up. And then I got to do the bowl down here, and then finish up with section 3, and the plot is done. One thing I'm going to recommend to you, especially if you're new to planting plots, always purchase more seed than what you need. If you planted, or if you purchase just enough to plant one wave, you're going to find yourself probably having to go out and buy more. Keep more seed on hand to re-sow bad areas, crop failures, and or pests like groundhogs, crows, some people call them ravens, anything that can come in here and harm your plot other than the deer. Turkeys can also cause major damage, so be prepared to have extra seed available and fix whatever areas you can. And so I'll have enough seed here to re-sow this entire plot if need be. All right, guys, I'm coming down to the home stretch for planting day. Not exactly how I wanted to organize this. Real quickly, let's look under here. Second wave of tilling, and look, it's starting to clean up. I can see a lot more teeth. Probably 75% of all that crap that was in there is now gone, and it's continuing to get better and better. But man, them teeth right there are in need of some serious replacements. I am lucky this thing is able to even chop anything at all right now, as good as it's doing. I mean, I've got my money's worth out of him, but so be it. I mean, granted, a new tiller's already in the works, and I'm just shopping around and looking for one. So I hope this video helps. This is not the best method, I know, but this is the only hand that I am dealt for right now. I do have a bush hog available, but it is not safe to operate it. Dad, when he used it last time, of course his memory was slipping as he got older, and he forgot where some of the rocks were out in the field, and he hit a rock and blew the top out of the bush hog. So there's like a hole about 8.5 to 9 inches across, and it would be literally right back here. So when you're bush hogging, it actually throws stuff on you, and I've actually been hit with rocks before, so it is not safe to use that bush hog. So that'll be another piece of equipment that I'll probably have to replace this year as well. All right, guys, I hope this video helps, and you all have a great day. All right, guys, this is the final video for planting day as far as the main food plot goes. I still have the island left to do, but I am happy to say the plot is planted, and I think this is about to look really nice. I ended up planting 90 pounds worth of soybean out here. So that is the highest sow rate I have ever implemented here, mainly because the mat was actually a little thicker than the previous year, or quite, in some cases, quite a bit thicker. So I wanted to make sure I put out just a little extra seed, just to make sure I still get a good germination rate. So down here is section 3. I mean, I think you can clearly see the mat is going to look way different depending on what part of the plot I am in. Give me just 1 second here as I'm removing a little bit here. So down here, this is where it laid less as far as terms of when I tilled it down. This laid on the ground for roughly 3 days before I came back in to finish it up once I got the tractor fixed. This up here, I mean, you can see the line from here up set for more than 12 days. I think a grand total of 13 or 14 days total. So this has been laying up here drying out for 2 weeks additional versus 3 days. Now granted, the thicker part of the plot was here and here this year, and 2 actually had some pretty good thickness points in it as well, considering what it grew last year. And of course my lagger was up here, and you can see another line where there's more dirt showing. I did not till more than twice anywhere in here. So this is all 2 passes this go around, and I feel like, I know I didn't get 100% kill off, but I got a very high percentage kill off. And some of that green stuff is actually off the post over there. I went over there and tried to break down some of that remaining rye and oats in there. Man, that was some thick stem plants for sure. So out here we have plenty of soybean in this area. This has soybean, Sunn hemp, okra is in here as well, small amounts of okra, and buckwheat. Now there's no sorghum out here on this end right now. I'm debating on doing that in a future planting, but I do have sorghum up here in the experimental strip. I will have no screen wall this year because I'm trying to fight a certain morning coffee plant that keeps heavily springing up in here, and then once I wipe it out, the screen wall will return. So right here, I don't know if you can see it well or not. You see there's 2 lines right here, and they run right up to the corner. This is going to be a 10-foot wide strip of gamekeeper soybean, sunflowers, which is those Mongolian huge sunflowers, Sunn hemp, and buckwheat. So that's what this whole strip right here will be, and it goes corner to corner with a little bit of an elbow out that way. Not much, but some. So I'm going to see how the sunflowers perform. I've also added a third type of sunflower that is going to be basically running this direction here, and it didn't get too terribly far. I think I got maybe a little bit past the post here, so that's kind of making a little bit of a dog leg, but it will be a different type of sunflower there. Right here in front of you, this is section 4 that I videoed so much as far as my first year in restoring. I did till a straight line boundary to help me out here, because I didn't want to really lose track of what the plot layout was to start with. So I came straight down from the top here and then tilled out the rest of this area. So this kind of marks the boundary between section 4, a little bit of section 3, and section 2. So this is how I'm going to use my definitive line to keep track of my soil conditions. So you can see here, this is pretty darn close to the mat that I want. I want the whole plot to look like that. That is 2 tills only. Now granted, it's not 100% kill off. I still see things that are kind of green here, and I will keep an eye on how much resprout occurs. I do have a spray that will kill this particular stuff if need be, although I am trying to prevent that. This makes a great weed mat, although the biggest problem is when you do a tilled mat like this, it's not the same as a no-till mat. A no-till mat is a much better blanket, much more consistent blanket than a no-till mat. And I know the question was brought up about seed to soil contact when I do the mat first and then sow. And granted, this looks like this would be a serious problem as thick as some of the mat is in here. But when you look at it really close, the mat has all kinds of gaping holes and gaps. So none of the seed is like bigger than my finger at all. The sunflower seed is as lengthwise as about from here to the end of my finger, but it's like that wide and it's thin. So generally what I find is the vast majority of the seed will fall down into the cracks of this mat. And I tend to get actually really good contact, but I bring the tiller back over this and it digs in the soil a little bit deeper than it did the first go around, because the first time it barely touched the soil except for in a few spots. The second time I brought this across here, the soil got hit quite a bit harder, and you can see where it's actually turned some of that up. So I was digging about 1.5 inches or so into the ground, and it was turning up just enough to where most of the seed is actually buried, or at least making good contact with the soil. Now, the only question that happens with the variety I'm sowing is the strength of the seed itself. The smaller the seed, the worse the window is for that plant to survive when it's coming up through something like this. So the smallest seed I set out here is deer vetch. However, deer vetch grows in lower light conditions. So I think this will still override the mat, and we'll see how much of this actually does work. The other seeds like buckwheat, soybean, sunflowers, even sun hemp seeds are all vastly larger than the small deer vetch seeds. The carrot seeds that I set out up here, was probably the second smallest seed group I set out. But here's the thing, that because my tractor had broken down, there was a huge delay between when I normally till and when I don't. So this is kind of the discovery I have made, and that is the places that were setting the least, which is over here. This laid on the ground for 3 days before I planted, versus, see the line, 12 days. What in the world has happened to my mat? See that? Look at how much more soil has exposed itself. If you didn't know what I had done and you just looked at the way this looks, you would have thought I would have went over this spot here 3, 4, 5 times to make it look this way, versus this thicker looking mat over here. And the answer was no, I did not. It was actually the same amount of passes. What happened was, over here where this laid for so long, all the material that did die had plenty of time to shrink up, shrivel up, and reduce its actual size. So as soon as you cut this stuff down, it's going to start shrinking and shriveling up. And that is exactly what has happened. So when I came in here with the tiller again, it was much easier to pass through it than it was the first time, without a doubt. And it also cleaned out my teeth in the tiller, because all that junk that had wrapped around got dispensed up there, because there's so much more soil and rock that's showing itself. So there's all kinds of stuff planted in here. Sorry about that. Groundhog right here. From the looks of it, I believe they vacated the premises just because they're so open now, and they will be back. It's a guarantee that when this soybean starts sprouting, they will be back. So I'm going to get a shovel and cut some of this hump off that he created and try to fill that in, so he doesn't come back here and mess with me, or at least try to deter him from doing so. Right here, experimental strip. It's actually kind of easy to see it. This is by far the thinnest coverage anywhere in the food plot as far as material to lay across the soil and rot. So I sowed the seed here a little thicker because of exposed soil. So that way when it comes up in a heavier batch, it will canopy over the soil faster, versus what that mat does down there. So my soybean has plenty of strength. It will pop up through that mat. Especially as your ground improves, the germination becomes stronger. It's actually more intense development versus poor soil. So things that may have failed in the past would actually succeed in the future. And you can see as I'm heading further and further up the plot, the mat is getting thinner. Right here is my old screen wall, second thinnest place in the plot. And then we're up here where I'm working on year 4. Ooh, get him out of here. Year 4 in soil restoring. So the mat thickened back up again because the ground up here is getting better. Get rid of him. But this will work great. I sowed this really thick with soybean up here. At least another 20 pounds per acre rate than last year. Because I did have problems here, especially on this end where there just wasn't enough soybean there. Now it's rained on it. Not enough to really do a lot yet, but there's plenty of rain on the way. And I've timed it well, at least I feel like I do. And now I can get all kinds of high germination rates, excellent soil moisture, and several days of cloudiness. The sun probably won't shine till sometime Thursday, maybe Friday. And this will help prevent baking on my soil tops here that are exposed. I mean, I still got buckwheat that survived. So officially I do have new seed or volunteer seed that has made it. Here is some exposed soybean, so I might as well go ahead and bury it while I'm here. That's the only thing about tilling. Tilling is very inaccurate. But when I have very limited equipment, this is why, this is basically what I'm forced to do. So I try to do the best coverage I can when I'm tilling across it. Again, I do not recommend this method. I'm not going to lie and say this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Not at all. This is by far one of my least favorite ways to do it. But when you till across your seed bed, there's a few things that's going to happen. One, you can damage seed. Not at a high rate, but some of it can get damaged. So if you're sowing at your normal rates and you try this, it may look like you've actually had worse germination than before. So I up my seed rates a little bit to counter some of that. And also, when you're planting seed depth, when everybody talks about how deep seeds need to be, there are some seeds in here, like my deer vetch, that do not need to be planted deep. They require roughly 1/4 inch of soil at the most. Soybean can be planted 1/2 inch deep, maybe a little bit deeper than that, 3/4 of an inch if you're getting a little deeper on your no-till. But it can cause germination failure because the seeds could be too deep. So just be aware that this is a very inaccurate method to cover soil. It's also similar to dragging when you drag across your soil. For those of you that use those pull-behind drags, you're still not going to cover all your seed. Tilling is basically the same way. I'm still not going to be able to till all my seed in and keep it covered. That's why no-till has the highest germination rate of any method around, just because the mat protects the seeds from being fried by the sun. The birds can't find them. I mean, it's much better protection-wise for your seed. So I hope this video helps you. I know it's a little bit lengthy here, but this to me has worked, and I have never had a failing crop because of it, but it is due to my machine limitations. So I hope you all have a great day, and that this video does inform you and help you in some way.